Right, welcome back. So let's speak now to the South African Council of Churches, Eastern Cape Provincial President, Canon Professor Reverend Lulama Ntshingwa in the Eastern Cape about this case that's been put before the Human Rights Commission regarding the Enyobeni tragedy. Reverend, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. I'd imagine that this must have been a difficult time for communities affected by this. How has the church, you as the SACC, been able to lend your support throughout these difficult times?
Indeed, it has been a difficult time for the communities around the Eastern Cape, the communities in Scenery Park, particularly your families, affected families, that is the 21 families, but not only the families, but also the survivors.
So, Reverend, just if you could just share some of the concerns, the conversations that have been had with the communities, because as we've mentioned that they have engaged SAPA, an organization, to put a complaint through the Human Rights Commission because they believe they want justice. They've not been able to attain that through the judicial system or even through politicians who all stood up at the time with umbrage and community leaders who were saying this was wrong, but they feel that months later they still don't even have an inkling as to what was the formal cause of death of these young ones.
I think the families are complaining that they feel they are not taken seriously by the government. And secondly, specifically that they do not want to accept the results given by the Department of Health because it's conflicting statements, basically. And so they do not want to accept it. And of course, the government is not engaging them. And I think that's the most important thing. The third thing is that they don't really get the necessary psychosocial support they need. And therefore, when they approached the SACC, we began to put together a legal team so that we can find ways for the families to find closure. And the way to do so is to actually find a solution. The cause of death of their children is traumatizing them in a big way, and therefore they will be happy if they can get the root cause of the problem. But as I've said earlier also that it is going to be important that as they move through this process, they need to be supported psychologically, they need to be supported spiritually, and that's what we are doing.
So we understand that they want someone or some people or some entities to be held accountable. So far, we hear from officials that the children died as a result of suffocating from overcrowding. But some parents are saying we are still waiting for forensic evidence to tell us what exactly is the cause of death. Is this what is being sought from the Human Rights Commission? And the fact that the Enyobeni owners, they were only charged with selling alcohol to underage children. We understand SAPA is saying that there must be legislative changes and not just charging people for selling alcohol to underage children.
I think in order for our citizens to be guided in doing things and socializing, there should be an effective legislation. There should be a legislation that is going to force tavern owners to comply. And as we see what happened at Enyobeni Tavern, clearly the laws were broken. And Liquor Board, yes, is taking the owners to court. But the communities and the families feel that I think something more drastic needs to be done to punish the tavern owners. They seem to be relaxed. They seem to be enjoying a particular lifestyle, and yet 21 children have died. And therefore, justice must be done. And that can only be done if then lawyers, legal teams are making a follow-up. And SAPA, therefore, have approached Human Rights Commission, who is part of our partners in the struggle to assist the families to get a solution on the cause of death.
Reverend, are you saying that there's no sign of remorse from the Enyobeni owners? And please expand a little bit more about their appearing to continue living a certain lifestyle that does not take into cognizance that they have the death of 21 youngsters on their hands.
Well, the fact that they are not arrested, the fact that they walk into court like celebrities, the fact that the families at some point were like not welcomed at court, and the fact that it's business as usual. Other taverns they own are still operating. Families feel that they are treated otherwise, and therefore something must be done to make sure that they show remorse.
The South African Human Rights Commission, through its provincial manager, says that they've received the complaint, but they are consolidating their matter into a broader investigation with existing concerns. Any idea what that means?
Well, we will be looking at the whole issue of criminal and probably civil litigation, and how that will expand, time will tell. But I think they are at the early stage of making investigations. But I cannot expand more because, as I say, early stages, and of course, they need to really get to the bottom of the matter. Remember, we still have children that are admitted in a hospital, and we're not quite sure what they're suffering from. And we also know that there are a lot of other survivors with scars. And we know that something happened to bring all these kids who were so many to come to this small tavern. Something happened, we don't know what it is. And I think the investigation will go that far.
All right.
And make sure that police are actually accounting on what actually happened.
Thank you so much for speaking to us and sharing those insights. Most appreciated. South African Council of Churches, Eastern Cape President Reverend Lulama Ntshingwa, who's also a professor of canon law.